seen earlier, now we already have entity framework model ready into my project, and I would like to retrieve information. I would like to use entity framework model to retrieve information. So in order to do this, I'm going to create a new controller corresponding to or specific for student, since I'm working on student module. So right click on controllers folder and create a new folder. So let me repeat the step. I right click on the controllers folder, go to add section, choose controller. Then you keep it MVC controller empty selection, click add button. And now here you need to give, let's just the template get loaded. Okay. You need to give proper name. Now for the convention name, always keep the word controller. So don't remove this word. Keep it as it is, then go to the first syllabus and then remove this and write student or write any other name for your controller. But make sure that controller is kept as it is, okay? And then click add. Okay, now I have a new controller. Since I'm interested to use entity framework model to retrieve some data, so I'm gonna create a new action, public I action result. Let's say I'm gonna name it show students. Okay. Now, of course, I get error because this is a function I'm supposed to return some value. So let me just put return view to make sure I have no error and nothing is irritating me about. Now I need to do what? I need to establish connection with my database. How can I do this? Since I'm using entity framework, remember that you don't need to write any SQL comments. So it's quite easy. I'm going to use using command. So using statement var, let's say db equal new, and then I need to follow the db context name I have, attend sysdb context. Attend sysdb context. All right. Now it's not recognized because it's located in different namespace. If you click on the help, the bold button, then it's going to show you the corresponding namespace that you're supposed to add into your current file in order to recognize this class. So you click. Okay, now I got it at the top here. Now you see that my class is recognizable. Now I'm ready. Once this command has been executed, that means I have already established a connection with database. Now what I can do, I can write db dot students, okay, dot, let's say, to list. So I'm going to retrieve all information, all students information from my database, var students equal. Okay, and I have to do toList because I need to materialize the comment. So I need to retrieve the actual data, and since I'm using db context inside, so I have to do this. Otherwise, if you have I enumerable, okay, and then you try to pass it to the view, so the view is supposed later to retrieve the data, but the connection would be closed by then and you're gonna get an error. So for this way of writing a code, then you have to materialize first. If you are getting your controller through the constructor, I mean the entity framework context, then you don't need to materialize now. You can leave it as I enumerable. But anyway, for now, we're gonna do this. And then we can retrieve here, return student, but for the scope, again, of my object, I'm gonna just make it here. So return students. And now that means I'm ready, or I have retrieved the information from my DB. And then I'm interested to view it inside a view called show students that I'm going to create later. But for now, why don't we just check whether this command is working correctly? So make breakpoint, then go to debug, start debugging. Okay, so now you see that my system is running. I need to go to the corresponding action and controller. So I can put slash student, my controller name, then show students. Once I hit enter, you will notice that I got a hit point, or my system has stopped at the point where I have located my breakpoint. Okay, so now is still nothing. You need to pass into the second comment. So students is still null. Then I press F10. Now I inspect back and I see that I got 4 students back from my DB. Right? So that is good. That means my system is working just fine. Now we can stop and let's go to the next step. So after we have created the controller and the corresponding action, now it's the time to create my view. So to create my view, you need to ensure same that I need to create first a folder for my student controller. You need to follow this convention. So the way you wrote student, is it plural or singular? Then you need to create corresponding folder for it. So in order to create folder, you right click onto views and then choose new folder. Okay. And then you name it as I already have here. Then next you need to create or add a new view. So right click on your newly created folder, then select add, then go or navigate to view, and then keep the default selection, click add, and now you need to give name into your view. Okay. So I'm going to change index to show students and always follow the same name that you have done or you have named your action with. Okay, so add. And now it's time to work into retrieving or showing details about my data that I suppose I have already got from the database. Let's first just create the table HTML where I'm going to show details about my information or the data information I got. Let's create t-head. Let's create a row, table row, and then td. I'm going to show the details. So I'm going to show also the ID, td, and then we have what? We have first name, then last name, then we have also address. Okay, for now I think that's enough. We have address. And then here I need to put the data I got from my database. Let's just take a look how the table look like. But before that, let me just add few Bootstrap classes. So I'm gonna have table bordered and table stripe. And let's say I want to make sure that it allocates the full width of my page. Okay, I think now we are ready to go. Let's just take a look into our page, how it looks like when we call show students. Okay, so as you see, let's again just make sure that we are looking into the correct action. So later we can add a link into our system. Okay, so here we have our table. So it looks nice so far. Let's go now back into the system, into Visual Studio, and try to show or inject the values that we got from our database into the CS/HTML file. Now, what you need to do, we need to declare to the view what model we are using. So in this case, we are using a list of students. So we can write as follows. So you can write add model, and then we need to specify list student. Now, student is not recognizable. So you need to ensure also you are referring to the correct namespace. So using then attendance system, and then attendance DB model. Now should be fine. The error has gone. Now we are ready to go into the next step. Okay, so now in order to retrieve the data, record by record, and inject the values inside my HTML file or CS/HTML file, then I need to use the command for each. For each var, for each student, I got back in model. So you notice it's type list of students. Then here it's just simple HTML along with C# code. So let's see how we can do. So for each student, we're gonna have a separate row. And then here we have TD. For the first one, we should show the ID. So now we already have the information inside this student object. Then I use add to inject C# code. So student dot, I have ID. Then you can just copy, paste a few times, and then replace with the corresponding field name. Okay, we still have an error, I believe, because ID, the letter D is written in a small letter. You can check, yes. So you see that my system has been showing the information from my database. Okay, so the last name is same, but if you inspect the first name, so I got different names indicating that I have correct values, also ID, right? So this is how you show or retrieve information from your database.